history of Byler Road tonight. We've got some people in here that know more about Byler Road than I do, certainly in the locales which you're most familiar. So we got a gentleman here that really knows that area down around Nauvoo and up to Larissa and places in between, and where the horses were stabled and other kinds of things, where what was that family that ran the horses? Not the Tittles, but the Ferrises. So the Ferrises ran the stage lines. And Engel had one up at Larissa. So we'll not get into that kind of depth. We've got the mayor of Glen Mary back here, which is a wide spot in the road somewhere south of Delmer. And it's a historic coal mining, strip mining locale with some history of the Byler to tell us. But what I wanted to do this evening is give you an overview about the potential future of the Byler. So even though we as genealogists are always looking at what came before, what's in our past, which is extremely important, there's also a way that that past can be made to live again by projecting forward some new visions and new ways of telling the story of the Byler.
We are here on the Byler Road, and a very famous road, early road, and Darrell is telling us about it.
Okay, thank you. Yes, we are on the Byler Road. It was the first road after the legislature was organized in 1819 to be built in the state of Alabama. He started the road about 1819 to 1820. He finished it up in 1824, Mr. Byler did, and it run from Muscle Shoals to Tuscaloosa. It went through Haleville. The part we're standing on is a little bit more interesting. We're right next to the road that goes out to Aunt Jenny Johnson Cemetery.
Just off the Byler Road is the Poplar Springs Cemetery, and the property owner for many, many years, she goes down in history, is Aunt Jenny Johnston, and she lived to be 98 years old. She lived until March 29, 1924. This stone is so unusual. Darrell, tell us about this.
Okay, the reason that they use this stone this size and put it down like this is because they have stolen her headstone about 15 or 20 times at least throughout the years. So ever since she's been buried here, her headstone would only last a few years at a time, and then it would go missing. So far, I've always made it around it, okay? That's the old Poplar Springs Church used to be here, and it's called the Poplar Springs Cemetery. This road goes right through Haleville. And in Haleville, Alabama, the Hightown Indian Path went on to Memphis, Tennessee, and the Byler Road, of course, went on to Tuscaloosa.
Darrell, you were talking about this bridge. There was the bridge before was a covered bridge.
So part of what I want to challenge this group with is being involved in helping retell the story of the Byler. Now, whether that would be done in the form of historic signage that might get posted along the Byler Way, or whether it might be interpretive panels that would have a combination of photos and text to tell the story, or some other innovative ways to tell the story, I want to challenge the scholarship of a group such as you to be involved in helping others enjoy the history here. I just turned in a proposal today for a grant to put some signage, some historic signage on several roads that pass through Colbert County. One is the Byler, which is passing here. Another is Jackson Military Road, which is passing here. Another is Old Memphis Pike, which is going to Memphis out of this area, that dates from the 1840s. So you've got some 1820s and 1840s range of roads in here. You've got Gaines Trace coming across, which dates back to 1808, 1809, when young Lieutenant Edmund Pendleton Gaines surveyed that route. We know him better today as the namesake for Fort Gaines down in Mobile. So these are some historic foundations to build off of, and for the most part, people going in the Shoals area aren't aware that all these historic roads are running through the area. And part of that is because there's no signage to tell them that it is. So we're planting some brown and white signs. The county can stamp these out at very economical cost. So we've planned some 50 signs here with a budget of $3,000 to help make people very aware of the historic roads and trails and byways that pass through Colbert. We find out some interesting things that we never knew before when we start looking along the routes. I've just learned today about a stagecoach stop that was in this vicinity here, and it was called the Peden, P-E-D-E-N stop. Turns out there's a fellow by the name of Warren Peden, who was a very large landowner, owned 27,000 acres of land. And so part of what we find as we dig along in trying to highlight a road like the Byler is we find new things that have been forgotten over time. And so again, there's a story to tell now there in Colbert County, and we've got some able storytellers there who I'm sure will do a fine job with that in the future. This map you can come up and look at later shows the Byler in blue moving south out of Colbert County down with Franklin County to the west and Lawrence County to the east and into the Bankhead Forest up through the Byler homestead location through forest lands and ultimately down into Winston County. When you come look at this, you'll see some routes, some of which we're calling alternate routes because the vision for the Byler is to, in the future, make it a Byler corridor where some people will want to drive it. Some people will want to hike it. The hikers may be on a different pathway than automobiles that want to drive it. Or the people that want to bicycle it may be on still a third pathway, or in some places the bicycle and the car will share the same pathway, and or the hiker and the biker may share the same pathway. So we envision a ribbon, if you will, of ways that becomes the Byler corridor. So the vision is through Winston and beyond, above and below. There will be something to emerge from work that is taking place now that will become the Byler corridor. So I'm trying to share a vision with you of the future of the Byler. So think about it as a recreation place, outdoor recreation for walking, hiking, biking, and or driving along at a leisurely pace and maybe stopping by the town of Haleyville on the way, and exactly how that can be incorporated into an interesting place to stop over while you're doing the Byler route will be something that will require some creativity. But a greenway through Haleyville is kind of one possibility. Stops at Rocky Ravine Park, into some of the Bluff House locations such as Canning Factory Hollow, into the Kimbrough Coves down south of Haleyville in the Marion County borderland area. All of those have really interesting locales, particularly to direct hiking trails to in the future. We envision that Byler Road will become part of a larger entity to be known as the Alabama Trail. Jeff is donating much of his time and life to the creation of the Alabama Trail. He and I began corresponding a number of months ago about how the Byler could become a key component for the Alabama Trail. So from the walls of Jericho up here around Scottsboro, down across to Decatur, taking the Trail of Tears path that National Park Service and Alabama Trail of Tears are developing into Tuscumbia, and south picking up the Byler Road at Leeton and moving down the Byler all the way to Mobile. There's some 60 miles of trail already developed down in the Mobile area. Alabama Hiking Trail Society is also operating some 20 miles of trail up in the Flag Mountain area, the lower part of the Pinhoti Trail, and that's projected to be carried across to Moundville, where it would intercept with this Byler extension south of Tuscaloosa going down toward Mobile. Outdoor recreation, walking, hiking, backpacking, jogging, etc. That's to be the emphasis of the future. Again, the corridor, a ribbon of trails, hikers use part, bikers use part, equestrians, the horse riders, will have a part. Maybe just in the forest area, or maybe some other locales will be horse riding areas. I know that down in the Fayette County area, south of Eldridge, there's a lot of horsemen down there that get out and ride the wilderness tracks down there. Byler Road is a prime pioneer route in the 1820s into the 1860s. Again, I've just depicted it here on the map. Its purpose was to get down to the capital at Tuscaloosa. Tuscaloosa, as you know, became the capital in 1824, and it was built just in time for the capital to be relocated into Tuscaloosa. Where the roads went is where the pioneers went. Where the pioneers went is where people set up homesteads and lived and died, and the cemeteries we know very well lie along some of those historic roads. Again, it's where the pioneer cemeteries are. I happen to have 30 direct ancestors with graves within 2 miles of the Byler, and what's mind-blowing is that both my mother's family and my dad's family both didn't come from Georgia to Alabama until the 1890s, but nevertheless, I've got old ancestors and some new ancestors up and down this historic road. The Byler is famous for the Wilson Cavalry Raid. This is the biggest cavalry raid ever attempted on the North American continent, one of the biggest cavalry raids ever in world history, and it came down the Russell Road, the Byler Road, and the Cheatham Highway. So those were 3 prongs. About 5,000 men under Croxton came this way, another 5,000 on the Byler, and 4,000 down the Cheatham, represented some 15,000 men that came down that trackway. And that was really probably the last major heavy traffic on the Byler. After the Civil War, traffic began to get diverted into other paths. There are a number of ghost towns along the Byler that up and down here in Lauderdale, Colbert, Lawrence, Winston, etc. A number of places where people used to live, but times have changed. People have moved on and moved off the farms and into the cities. Now the rest of the story? Yeah.
I learned something today. I learned that somebody knows more about the Byler Road than Joel does. That's the first thing I've heard of that. I'm the president of the Alabama Hiking Trail Society, and we like to walk extreme distances. We were founded in 2002 expressly to make a trail across the state of Alabama. Our model has been the Appalachian Trail. It's a long-distance wilderness path, but it didn't start that way. The towns and the historic landmarks, but that incorporated those. Now, in 1967, passed the National Scenic Trails Act, which included the Appalachian Trail, put a lot of money to buy land to make it a wilderness path. Most often when I talk to hikers, that's the first thing they go to. The Alabama Trail, a wilderness footpath that goes from Mobile to Decatur to the walls of Jericho. And my wife and I walked the Camino de Santiago across Spain. 500 miles over there, it's 800 kilometers. The Camino is a footpath, a bike path, a car path, and a horse path. And we walked across the Pyrenees Mountains, the Wilderness Trail, and then we were on roads and backcountry roads and main roads with the little dedicated walking path beside it, going through history of northern Spain. We got to this one place up in the mountains. There's a guy there who, Tomar, very nice guy, believe he's who practices hospitality. And he lives in a 1,000-year-old house, smaller than this opening. And you go in and he rings bells and you sign a consent form that you're not going to bring alcohol or drugs in. And you eat at his in this one-room house. And then when it's time to go to bed, you go up in the attic. One resident. And it was the most outstanding hospitality we had on the whole trip. Instead of starting from scratch to build a wilderness footpath, let's engage with local communities, historical societies, geological societies, and let's build a cultural corridor. Let's engage together and collaborate so that what we're doing is we're celebrating the rich of Alabama. And we have a rich, deep history that is second to none in this great nation of ours. We have the longest scenic rivers path in the nation. Before that, we have a major commercial route of trading between folks who live down on the Gulf shores and as far north as Wisconsin and Minnesota. That's 10,000 years old. In the Alabama Hiking Trail Society, we want to walk it. Or folks that want to drive it, like all those folks who go through the very northwestern corner of Alabama, they go from Memphis to New Orleans, from Nashville to New Orleans on the Natchez Trace. If we can bring those automobiles here and say, well, guess what? We got history. If we can bring folks who want to research their genealogy and say, where do we come from and where are our people? I used to be a horse owner. If we want to have people on horseback or people on bicycles that want to race 100 miles through different routes. Now down the road, the Alabama Hiking Trail Society wants hiking footpath. We do. But this history and culture of Alabama. The Camino de Santiago is a model. A place where pilgrims walk for kind of different reasons. Some of them historical, some of them religious, some of them just because they like to walk. This is our vision that we're going to call the Alabama Trail. I want you folks in Winston County to think about the possibility that there would be people from all over the world that would be excited to learn about your history and culture. Now, I'm from Alabama. I was raised here. And I've been to a lot of places in this great nation of ours, and a lot of times people, when they meet me and learn I'm from Alabama, the first thing they do is look at shoes on. I'm not lying. Okay? And my hackles get up. Proud to be from Alabama. Very, very proud. This is my state. This is my home. People will be very, very interested. There are a lot of states in the southeast that have hiking trails, and most often they're trying to make them wilderness footpaths. I want to have a place where people can drive and stop and learn and celebrate this history and this culture. Where I can stop, I can bathe, I can get a good meal, I can sit in a place like this and learn something about this state, about my roots. I want to have designated spots all along this way where people can stop and learn that people came before us. Not to blow through here just to say I've hiked 650 miles. I'm going to end with 3 C's. Communication, cooperation, collaboration. Communication is the first, the most basic. It's the ground. It's the foundation of doing things. You've got to communicate and tell people what you're doing, and that's fine. You've got to do it. The second thing is cooperate. But really, when you cooperate with somebody else, what you're doing is saying, I'm going this far and you're going that far, and we're going to stay outside of each other's way. All right, that's fine. That's what cooperation means. But collaboration is when I have something I want and you have something you want. And together we're going to do a third thing that gets us both what we want. You see, that's collaboration. If I were just to build a trail, if I could just make it happen out here, just by waving a wand, and it was just based on my knowledge and experience, well, that would be much less of a trail than if I collaborated with folks like yourself. Because I would not know anything about Winston County. Nothing. I would just know about what a hiking trail looks like. And that's what I would build. Instead, when we collaborate, I want us to be able to walk. Believe it or not, I want to be able to walk from Mobile to the walls of Jericho and not have to worry about finding my way. I think if we collaborate, we'll get something better for each of us. Okay? Thank you so much for having me and Joel here to speak. Sir, where did you get that cane?
From an Irishman.
From an Irishman?
Just shillelagh.
Well, that's a war implement. That's precisely. My dad was from Cordova, by the way, Walker County, just right down in the south. And he would take me out in the woods and try to help me find canes like that. That's what I went to. You know, have a vine growing around them and you can carve them. But that's a great idea. Sure.
I felt a lot safer.
Yes.
Because they have boulders and tree roots and everything up there. They don't have a clear one.
They know how to do. And
Well, this is what we're talking about, whittling.
number of them still.
That's a whittling task, right?
That's right.
To make a cane? Yeah.
We had no opportunity like in California
Mm-hmm.
and first locations we were hiking. But when we got up into the forest area of Washington State, that was where we ran into them. So we bought them so we have them next year.
Yeah. Yeah, see, I'm also very business focused, and that sounds to me like an opportunity. It really does.
They would have maps similar to what you have, and just to cover over it, but they had a little stand there that you could just get them, and it had a little sign, use them, drop them off. If you don't want them, but if you want to purchase them, there's $5, and they had a little lock box. Put it in.
See, that's lovely.
$50 bill, we bought 4.
Jeff, there's something else about your experience that you can tell the group about too, and that is Jeff is the owner of a hostel.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
That's along the Pinhoti in the Talladega Forest area. So again, that's something else Winston Countyans might want to be a hostel owner and be the welcomer, be the guy that brings them into the smorgasbord table, if you will.
Yeah, the Pinhoti, I guess it's the premier trail in Alabama, the most famous. Goes through, where's the map? I could draw a map, but you know where it goes. It goes from Flag Mountain down in Weogufka, kind of near it. Goes up through over Mount Cheahaw, ends up on the Georgia-Florida line. It's 170 miles in Alabama. We're the only hostel right now. There used to be another one, but the owner of that hostel is now the director of Cheahaw State Park, so she's not running the hostel so much. Nancy and I, we realized that when we hiked the Appalachian Trail, and we came to it later, we were older. Again, we just finished in 2014. We took like 3 summers to do it. If you want to go to the library, which we have a great library in Talladega as well, with a great historical society room. If they want to go there and learn about Talladega and just take a break, they can do that. If they want to get Mexican food or Chinese food, or if they want to get steak, or if they want to get fast food or pizza, we had great pizza in Talladega. Custom pizza. They can do all of that. And that's what a hostel is. A hostel is a place where you can get off the trail and relax, rejuvenate, just rest, take it easy. Everybody takes siestas, and we never ahead. So it's like the 3rd day of our hike on the Camino, and we go into this little town, and I'm thinking, I got to get something to eat. I'm starving. Everything's closed. Stammered out, "Tango mucho hambre." I don't speak Spanish. And she said, "Oh." And she went and knocked on doors and got us baskets of fruits and breads, and just came out and handed them to us. And I start reaching to my wallet, euros. No, bon camino, which means, walk well. Bon camino. She knew we were pilgrims on the way. And that stays with me. That stays with me, that act of hospitality. That's what we try to practice. And it's a marvelous thing. And I do, we're coming through Double Springs, up through the Bankhead. I look at a town like this and I think, this is a great place to practice hospitality. There's humble abodes where, that's a great question. We bring expertise in trail building, maintenance. That's our part to bring to the table. We also have a network that is multi-statewide of folks who are interested in backpacking and hiking that we can communicate with. We also have a number of volunteers. What I would want from the Genealogical Society is things that I don't know about. Again, if we collaborate on it, what does the Winston County Genealogical Society want? And how could, if we do this together, how could you get that thing that you most want? I don't know. That's why I know what we can do.
And then there's also possibilities for all kinds, any number of side trails. And so where do you want directional trails to direct them to the rock house? Or to direct them to something else that's not going to be on the trail proper? So some thinking needs to start taking place about where are those stops. Cemetery is the most famous, or cemeteries that are going to be destinations.
For instance, where's this? This gravestone. This is one of your ancestors. It's a sad gravestone.
It is the oldest known headstone in the county.
Henry H. Lovett was born December 26th. Is that what it says? 1833, deceased December 3rd, 1834. Let's just,
But it's a hike to get to it.
see, when you say it's a haiku, I like that.
For you, it's a little skill for you, probably.
Well, it requires a trail to get there.
Yeah, see, in North Carolina, all the places on the Appalachian Trail that I know of, in North Carolina, there's a place where the Appalachian Trail goes right around the edge of a cemetery. No relatives there, but it's an old cemetery. Had decorations and headstones I've never seen before. And we stopped.
So we're kind of open to being driven by what the community wants and thinks they can support. And so, you know, if your civic Double Springs is strong enough to kind of drive a link in the trail over to here, then that's something that ought to be done. But the main Byler is going to go through Haleyville, and it's going to go on down to Glen Mary and Natural Bridge and on into Old Dublin and on into North River and into Northport. So that's going to be the backbone. So you got a backbone, and then you got arms and legs that can come out from the backbone.